Debris is NBC's, I think, new attempt at getting an X-Files going. But instead of Scully, we have a British yoga teacher.
I'm going to tell you something I shouldn't. The coroner has reclassified her death as accidental to correspond with her injuries.
And instead of Mulder, he's a favorite of ours, Jonathan Tucker. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, they give him a glass of milk and a bag of Valium before every take. So I don't know. Look.
Oh, well, keep up the good work.
So I think the question a lot of people are going to ask with Debris is, how does it compare? It's a co-creator Fringe. It's new kind of prestige show coming on NBC. It really is a little tough to tell after 3 episodes. But what I'll say is Fringe basically had John Noble and this sort of little wacky charm. I think what's missing from Debris is it hasn't quite found its tone or what it wants to be, because it's actually sort of almost naively innocent at this point. There's not a lot of violence. There's not a lot of crazy action. It's actually people sort of being nice to each other and like trying to solve mysteries, weirdly nostalgic. But it also kind of lacks, like, Fringe just had this humor and charm that I think Debris either isn't going to have or hasn't quite found yet. But it's intriguing. It's a show that, like, if you're into Fringe, I could see somebody totally getting behind this, as long as you can give it maybe a few more episodes to kind of find itself. That's kind of what's missing right now is a real sense of identity.
That's new.
It feels like the show is taking itself too seriously, but it's just like accidentally taking itself too
Yes,
seriously.
it's accidentally very sincere.
And the thing with Fringe, and talk about X-Files too, is like there is they've got their toes in camp, in 90s
Yeah, a little
camp
bit.
television, and
Yeah.
and the characters just are a little more like on the nose jump than these characters, and they just need a little bit more of that. I think the show's trying to
Yeah.
be a little too prestigious. Again, they go into so much melodrama stuff. I think they're trying to hit home a lot of emotional things, and it's like,
Right.
let's make me like these characters a little more before you start making me care about their families and other things going on. That camp, that little bit of just like Mulder being a little too much, that little kind of
Yeah.
winking to the audience, like, we know this is kind of crazy and fun, and stick around for primetime NBC, right?
And speaking of sticking around, we got plenty more to say about Debris. But if you guys want to hear more about it, if you guys want us to be covering, future episodes, give us your thoughts on the show, and please, like, subscribe the video, because this show is it's intriguing to us. And if you're kind of feeling something too, if you're feeling nostalgia, let us know. Let us know what you're thinking about it.
Why do you do this?
This show actually feels like charmingly throwback. Like it hasn't found its footing clearly, but it feels like a 90s show. Like it's very sort of episode of the week. There's a little, sort of, shadowy government backstory happening, but there's like not a lot of violence. There aren't like bad guys in a traditional sense. It's just kind of like these people who are sort of like surprisingly wholesome and not very intense, except for when they're crying.
Yeah.
Dealing with the aftermath of this mystery magic alien technology sort of landing on Earth. And like you said, not only do I sort of like it, I don't love it, but I sort of like it. I also kind of want it to get good. I'm like, maybe this could be a good show. I'm hopeful.
I really like the show. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting, and I want to see where it goes, but it falls short of being good enough for me to like give a like hearty
Right.
recommendation.
100% on that.
We work for a division of the government that investigates scientific anomalies.
Jonathan Tucker is like this undiscovered gem of acting. I think like Joel Wyman actually in some interview, he basically called him like he's like America's next Gary Oldman. And like what crazy high praise is that? Because like seriously, Jonathan Tucker, like anything you see him in, he's like sort of a chameleon. And then in this, he's this sort of ex-military, there seem to be like wanting to have this dark baggage, but he's so chill that you're like, does he have any baggage, or is that like? But you can tell like there's a layered performance trying to happen, and they're just not giving him enough material to quite do it. But like, such a great performer that I want him to do amazing things with this.
Jonathan Tucker is one of those actors. He stormed onto the scene with Sleepers and The Virgin Suicides
Yes.
and these movies where they are just powerhouse drama performances by him and everyone around him. Frankly, when I saw Tom Holland bust onto the scene, I went, oh my God, Jonathan Tucker just barely missed out by like 10 years. Honestly, do we just want this show to work because we love him so much and we just want him to be
Maybe
like a
that's it.
star? I think that
You
might be
know,
it.
I know the debris here for a reason. I feel it.
My biggest problem with the show is it's got this cool plot mystery, but at the same time they're making these really kind of boring milquetoast characters where like both of them are nice. Like spoilers here, but Jonathan Tucker has a big secret over
right.
her and he's not supposed to
Yeah.
tell her. I think it would be more interesting if he was nice to her face and then kind of cruel when she
Right.
wasn't looking, because that would make him more interesting. But instead, we have two characters who just, boy, they're just nice
They're just
people,
very
and
nice. Yeah.
they're doing their best. Gosh golly, and it makes them really boring. The show gets boring when they're not talking about the plot. I get pretty
Right.
bored, unfortunately.
It's funny you say that because I think that is the biggest thing is that they're trying to sort of have this shadowy thing go on where like are the two, the British government and the US government are trying to kind of play against each other, and then now in the third episode we're finding out the Russians and the Chinese are kind of playing their own angle on things. Like, who's going to tap into the power of the debris first is seeming like where this is going to go for the big plot. But week to week is just kind of like what's the weekly debris that they've found and what crazy shenanigans is that debris getting up to. Either like let them sort of, be conniving a little bit and then maybe they'll come together, or golly gee, if they're going to be nice to each other, then maybe Jonathan Tucker just throws his own government under the truck and just like,
Goes for it.
tells her what's going on. It's like people losing somebody and sort of the debris almost feeding off of that or tapping into that almost in like a Solaris kind of way. Like, so it's harkening back to some better science fiction, but like some interesting science fiction. I am intrigued to see where they go because the bigger plot and that sort of, like emotional sincerity is like honestly in kind of a way a little bit refreshing. Like I can't name another show in the last 10 or even 20 years that is like this sort of like sincere about emotions combined with science fiction. I'm like, it's kind of interesting. And hey, NBC, maybe don't cancel it after like 6 or 12 episodes and let it find its footing, like we used to do back in the day.
That's right.
Um,
So if you guys want to see more debris, leave a comment down below. We will be watching. Hopefully, it gets going in the direction we'd like to see it. And we'll see you next week.